Hello, everybody. Welcome to attend the PC episode of Hoop Room at Hoopsters, the League of Action Heroes. In our endeavor to bring you discussions on subjects less talked about, we are today in conversation with the team at Flawsome, Seema and Priyansha, who have a collective experience of over 2 decades in therapy and coaching. They are believers of their own flawsomeness and that of others, and are advocates of self-intimacy. They facilitate programs through a medley of interventions ranging from positive psychology, expressive art, psychodrama, improv, and coaching. And today's topic of discussion is imposter syndrome. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this term, but according to Google, imposter syndrome is the experience of feeling like a phony. You feel as though at any moment you are going to be found out as a fraud, like you don't belong where you are, and only got there through dumb luck. Okay? So let's try to understand more about this syndrome from these two people in the know. Welcome to the show, Priyansha and Seema. Lovely to have you all on the show. And let's begin here. That's nice. Okay, let's begin with the fact of why the name Flawsome.
That's a good question. Because we are Flawsome, that's why.
Okay, what does it mean?
Yeah. Flawsome is, as the word says, it's a combination of awesomeness and embracing one's flaws. It's just all of us.
Did you have anything else in mind when you guys formed this thing?
Yeah, we did want to bring gender-related issues out to everyone's awareness.
Okay. So why did you agree to get on this show?
Why did we agree to get on the show? That was a really good question that you asked. Because we want people to know about the imposter syndrome.
Okay. So why? Why do you want people to know about imposter syndrome?
We have, in our experience, including my own, I've seen the effects of it. I've seen how it holds me back. And I felt that it would be a good place to share and let people also be aware that it exists and what they can do with it. Yeah, so the imposter syndrome is a type of inner critic that we have. It's a voice that's inside of us. And it comes up in regards to performance and competency. It comes up anything to do with anything that we feel like we have to perform for. So we keep discounting ourselves. We keep saying that they're just being nice. If people are praising us, their accolades, their achievements that we have had, and we say no, they're just being nice to us. It was our looks. It was something or the other, anything, but not our own merit. That's what the imposter syndrome is.
Okay. So why do you think it's? Yeah, Seema, bolo. I mean, Priyansha.
I just want to give an example, a personal example of mine. For instance, I was recently asked to conduct some workshops for people who are much senior to me. And one of the first things that I thought of was clearly they made a mistake. And when they actually see me and experience my work, they'll realize that this is a big mistake. After the first session, they're just going to say, okay, thank you, bye-bye. And they won't want to work with me anymore. And in that moment, what I experienced, it's incredible, right? Because the way the human brain works, because I know what I know. I know the training, the knowledge that I've gathered in all the years of working. And yet, in that moment, I forget all of it. And what takes precedence is, oh, they've made a mistake. I don't know anything, and this is not going to work. I'm going to be found out, basically.
Okay, in simple terms, how would you still define imposter syndrome? Something a common man person like me with no medical knowledge, no understanding, actually gets to understand it. Because according to what I have gone through or I am listening to you and this, it just seems to be a case of nerves. It just seems to be something like, oh my God, I am nervous to go on stage or nervous to talk to people or insecure about certain things. So
Yeah,
where
it's
does
all
it?
of that. It is nerves, it is insecurity, it is self-doubt. The thing is that even though you really high performance, you've got the achievements, you've got the certificates, you have so many years of experience and everything, you're still saying you're not good enough. You're still saying that it's because of or every other reason but yourself. You didn't get there. It was your luck that got you there. It was other people were not good enough and you were chosen. They had no other person and therefore they chose you. All of those kind of thoughts are coming in your mind.
Yeah, but couldn't it also be because you have set very high standards for yourself and, you said, I'm not good enough possibly because I know that there are better people than me. It's not about even possibly even insecurity. It's just the fact that you have set high standards. And somewhere along the line, the mirror says, you're not good enough.
Yeah, what you're saying is so relevant. We do set high standards or any standards for our own behavior and performance, and that is important, essential. And yet once we set those standards, there are moments when we don't meet them, or we feel that we don't meet them. We really punish ourselves, and in some ways it becomes hard for us to even meet those standards that we set for ourselves, because they'll keep changing, right? We'll keep setting higher and higher standards for ourselves, which is great, which is the good part about in the imposter syndrome, because it also helps us to make sure that to check in with ourselves that our performance is where it should be. And it becomes dysfunctional when it is a constant voice in our head which is making us doubt ourselves, saying I don't deserve this or I'm not good enough, and could actually then show up in our behavior where we appear anxious or unsure or underconfident. That's when it becomes a problem.
Very interestingly, you guys have brought out, I mean, when I was speaking to you and you said and I asked you what subject you want to discuss. And I remember Seema telling me, I would like to talk about imposter syndrome. It's very interesting. So why does this subject interest you guys?
Like I said, that it's.
I mean, as counselors and as people in the business, there are a lot of other subjects that are chosen, or talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So there must be something that must be a trigger for you to come up with this.
We're noticing that that is something that's coming up. I mean, I'm noticing that it's something that's coming up in my sessions. I'm noticing that it's something that is coming up in me. It's something that I have seen happening within me. I'm now being able to say, oh, this is the reason why I am not being a certain way, why I am not showing up in a certain way, why I feel nervous, why I am, not shining the way I could. So yeah, that's the reason why. Sri, you want to add?
Yes, so it is something that more and more when people come and talk to me nowadays, and what's interesting is, Bala, you mentioned earlier that it's a little known subject, but in a certain demographic, and especially I'll name it women, who come to me for coaching, are either talking about the symptoms or directly naming it themselves and saying, you know what, my imposter syndrome keeps acting up and I'm not able to go for that promotion that I really want because I keep feeling that I don't deserve it. So it is something that we're seeing around us. And of course, Seema and I have sort of swapped enough stories, personal stories between each other to know that we're both dealing with constantly.
Okay, could it also be a kind of sense of a low body image or a low intellectual image? Could be something as simple as that? Is it, or is it a real issue? Is a syndrome? You know? Or it's just
But
that, okay, I have a very low self-esteem of mine.
it's a combination of all of that you're saying. It is. It could be about your body image. It could be about your intellectual image. It is a syndrome. It's not a disease condition. It's not something that you need to go and get like a treatment plan for and stuff like that. Okay? And yet it is something that has an effect on one's own mental well-being. Right?
So would you call it a mental health issue?
Like I said, it's about one's mental well-being. It affects it. It is a space of low esteem. It could lead to things like depression. It could lead to things like anxiety and so on. Okay? And at that point in time, you would need to, get treatment for those. It's by itself, the imposter syndrome is not going to be something that you're going to need to go to, get medication and so on. Yeah.
So what I have, what I do usually when somebody says, "Hey, I think it's imposter syndrome," I don't automatically say, "Okay, yeah, let's start working on this." I continue to remain curious about what that imposter syndrome means for them. How does it show up for them? How does it help them? How does it hinder them? And go from there. So it's always starting from a place of curiosity about what, because it means different things for different people. So being present to that, and then ensuring that when we address it, it is an individualized approach and not a generic imposter syndrome, and therefore there are these 5 things you must do about it.
So what are the symptoms that come across? I mean, what do you call, any symptom, like for example, okay, when do I realize that I have an issue? I mean, I may not know the name imposter syndrome. That's something when I come to you, you'll possibly tell me about it. But as an outsider, what is happening in me when I decide that I need to seek help? Because I would normally, I mean, what you're talking about is something I think all of us have gone through in its own, degrees of seriousness. I mean, it took me, I think, God knows how many years to even come and talk in front of the camera like this. Okay, so we all have got a kind of low self-esteem, if I call so, when it comes to certain things. All of us have got it. So when do I know that this is an issue with me?
I just want to add, it's not just people like us. It's people like Sheryl Sandberg,
Absolutely.
Maya Angelou,
Absolutely.
Tom Hanks. So many of the
Yes.
celebrities also know that they've got imposter syndrome. When would you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. When would you want to do something about it? When you find that it's holding you back, when you are feeling like you want to figure out whether it is the low self-esteem issues or whatever you have is about the imposter syndrome or not. Then you have a direction. Then you know that, okay, let me pay attention to my thoughts. Let me find out, okay, what am I saying to myself? Am I saying that this is luck? Am I saying that it's because it's the company policy and that's why I got the promotion that I got? What is it that I'm attributing my success to? That's
so
when I go.
So what really happens with the individual? What really happens? Okay, let's take X, for example. Okay, what happens to him? Let's take the situations in the real life. You talked about getting promotions. Okay, it could be somebody wanting to go on stage and talking. what are the various issues you can talk about? So somebody like me can understand the fact that I could be in that situation.
Yeah.
Give me some example. Like what really struck me now was I got a promotion and I don't deserve it. Okay, and I feel somewhere deep down I don't deserve it. That's something which I never thought of. For me, when that whole thing of insecurity is only about talking on camera, talking on stage, or talking in groups. But what you brought about is something I'm sure people are feeling it. Can you give me some more instances in real life where I can sort of recognize, at least the people watching the video tomorrow or people watching it now, okay, if they can relate it somewhere?
So there are several, again, it differs very much from individual to individual, but perhaps there are several things that one can identify. And so one is, well, the actual words, like I will be found out, or it may be found out that I actually don't know anything. They've called me on as an expert on the team, but at some point they're going to realize that actually I don't know anything. Or it may come up as I cannot fail at any cost. Excuse me, I cannot fail at any cost because I have to succeed. I have to be perfect. Or even that the other way, which is I was not meant to succeed. This project, I was not supposed to be awarded this project. And it could exist simultaneously with the feeling of, yeah, I've done it, I deserved it, I worked really hard for it. So just because one has the thought, the chatter of the imposter inside us, does not mean that the other feelings that I have with it do not exist. Of feelings of achievement, of joy, of happiness, of pride. They will also exist. And yet there is this other chatter. Now it is up to us to decide how much is this chatter getting in the way of me performing my job in the best way possible. So I don't know, Bala, if I answered your question of, how can people identify it? But some of the examples I gave, some of the sentences that I said, those may resonate with people and sound familiar.
So a couple of other examples would be that I won't take up job which I don't exactly match. There'll be a job requirement, and if I don't match it exactly, I will not apply for that job. I won't apply for that position. It could be that I have a presentation to make, and I know it inside and out. For example, just the imposter syndrome itself. Okay? When we spoke about it, when you asked us, how are we going to present this? I was like fumbling away. Okay, let's do this and let's do that, and all of that kind of stuff. And I have done so much of research on it, and studied it, and put us, a whole. This is the way it gets triggered, and this is the way it shows up, and these are the effects, and did all of that kind of work, and still I wasn't able to say, okay, let's do it this way.
Yeah,
that's how it turns up.
Yeah, I totally resonate, obviously, having experienced it. The other is that Seema and I collectively experience is that we feel we cannot put anything out there until we know everything about it. We cannot teach a particular or facilitate a session unless we feel we've done, quote unquote, enough research, enough, have
enough experience,
talk to enough people, which is great because it means that what we're presenting to people is really well researched, well thought out content. And not so great because ultimately we'll keep putting it off and saying we're not ready yet.
Fair enough. So, at this point, I would like to ask the audience out there, the participants who are here, if they have any questions about this, or if they want to share any of their thoughts, they can type out on the chat box. And I'm sure, well, I know from experience, definitely that each of us has an issue in some degree or other. So that's for sure. Okay. But I mean, how serious can it get? I mean, what's the most serious case that you guys have encountered?
How serious can it be? You don't show up for, I mean, you don't take up promotions. You don't, you stay stuck where you are. You feel frustrated. All of those kind of things. It could be like that. But is it like, I mean, can it go to a space of depression and all? It's difficult to say that that's a direct link between imposter syndrome and something as serious as that. It's impossible to say right now. That's what it is. Yeah.
So how does one recognize, watching what the conversation we have, how does it really, how do I look at it in a slightly serious tone, and try to look back at myself? How do I get that to happen?
Say that, can you answer?
Okay, I'm watching this program called Imposter Syndrome, okay?
Yeah.
I saw the title, it sounded nice, interesting, so I logged onto this, watched it. And I did understand, yeah, but how do I still convince myself to look into me, okay? Just to understand if I am, are there any small early symptoms of what I'm going through exist or not? Because I would normally brush it off as saying that, no, it doesn't affect me. It happens in case of much more serious issues. Okay, I'm sure it can happen in this case where I don't take it seriously, but somewhere it can get serious, or it is somewhere affecting my daily life, right? It is. So, what would you tell me to look at myself seriously? What are the 5 things I need to go back, and sort of analyze my own daily life, and then say, yeah, I might have. Should I seek help? What would that be?
Because the topmost would be when everyone around you is saying that you're really good at the work that you are doing, and you yourself think you're not. Okay, you yourself feel like you are not worthy of the praise and accolades that you've been given. Actually, one of the audience sent me a message saying a feeling that we don't deserve the praise or accolades we receive or achieve. So that's the key. If that's how you're feeling, and if you are attributing it to external reasons, like you're saying that I'm lucky, there was nobody else who was there that they could choose, that it was a company policy and that's why I got promoted. It's, when you're attributing your success to factors other than yourself, then you would want to look at the imposter syndrome. Priyansha, you would like to add?
For me, it would be what I experience as the imposter, as the voice inside me. It may not have an immediate effect. In my first job, for instance, I kept feeling, you don't belong here. You're nowhere as qualified. And it kind of snowballed into, in the first few months, into feelings of really just approaching each task with this dread that I'm going to get it wrong. And when you start working with that mindset, I can tell you it's not very productive, and it's not going to get you results. And ultimately, you don't perform well at your job. I know in those months I didn't perform well until I actually recognized it and addressed it.
So would you guys call it a mental health issue? I mean, how does it manifest?
I do want to answer that question, Bala. I'm also noticing that there are a couple of questions on chat.
Sure, you can address them. I'll leave it to you guys.
Jyoti has asked, how is the imposter syndrome different from just a lack of self-confidence? The difference is that your fear is of success. It's not so much a failure. And you are doing amazing job. You have got the certificates, you have got the promotions, you've got the great job that you were looking for, and you still feel like it's not because of me. That's I'm hoping that I'm answering that question.
Yeah, so Seema, I agree with what you said about it being so much about how I see myself. And Jyoti, to your question, having an imposter inside us, because it's almost like a personality, another voice, which is quite critical and sometimes very harsh, it can lead to a lack of self-confidence. Amongst other things, like in the example that I just gave, my first professional experience, it led, because I had that imposter thought of, well, I don't really belong here. It created a feeling of, or a lack of self-confidence when I approached tasks or spoke to people.
So how does, I'm sorry, this one, how does one try to get over it?
I would rather that you not look at, get over it.
Okay, exactly. So is it something you live with?
Overcome it, or,
Overcome it?
Yeah,
how do you do that?
Yeah. So, the research says that the imposter syndrome comes up when you deeply care about the quality of your work. Okay? So it's saying a lot about you. It's saying that this, what I'm doing, matters. It means a lot to me. So rather than looking at something that I want to suppress, or I want to ignore, or I want to, throw out of my life, maybe we look at it and we ask ourselves, like, why is it showing up? Ask yourself questions like, how am I limiting myself? Why am I attributing it to luck? Why am I saying that it is a company policy? Why am I not looking at how much work I've done to get where I've gotten? Okay, so the most important thing when you recognize that you have got the imposter syndrome is to keep thinking about is to become aware of the thoughts that you're having about the imposter syndrome. What is it that we're thinking at that point in time? Tree, you want to add?
Another question from Aparna, and there's a hand raised that I see also. So Aparna, your question of is the inner critic was related to imposter syndrome? Absolutely, yes, you hit the nail. The imposter is actually a kind of inner critic.
But tell me, I was listening to Seema speak, but how many of us have got that strength or knowledge to even discuss within ourselves as to what is going wrong, or understanding it? Well, I have met a lot of people who have very similar issues that we are discussing, but they know it's wrong, they know something, there's an issue, or they're facing this thing, but they have no way of knowing that it's serious enough to seek help. They don't understand that point, and they have no way of debating within themselves and trying to overcome it. So how does one tackle that?
A good space would be just to reach out to friends. A good space to start would be just reach out to friends and just talk about it and say that, this is how I'm feeling. And you'd be surprised how many other people would say, yeah, we're also thinking and feeling the same way. So, and in that itself, there would be just how have you dealt with it? And that kind of a conversation could take you to so many places. Of course, there is going to a coach, going to a counselor, and working on what's going on. To go back to where did it all start? How did it begin? So to get to that point, to the root, as to the root of why the imposter syndrome started up within me.
Perfect. So where does it normally begin?
It depends on person to person.
Average. I mean, let's take 5-10 cases, 10 situations. Where does it begin normally? I mean, it's more for people to understand that it could begin there. It's possibly a glimpse into their own lifestyle.
So actually, it would be somewhere in the childhood, in their young adulthood. It would be there.
For some people, it could be first job. Somewhere in the middle of their lives, even.
For some, it could be much earlier than that as well. It could be in school and college.
I think for us, what really is, and for most people, what's really helpful to figure out is when did we start noticing it, and when did it start getting in the way? And that's the key question. And more important than that, what is it doing right now to me? And how is it helping me or not helping me?
Okay, so when do how can a counselor help me? Or do I need a psychiatrist?
No, psychiatrists would happen, like I said, if it goes into a space of depression or anxiety.
Fair enough. Okay, let's assume that I have realized I have an issue or something is bothering me. I'm not able to pinpoint the issue. All I know is I don't feel confident. I don't feel good. I don't just enjoy the accolades that I'm getting. And I know it's bothering me somewhere. And I am possibly even wise enough to seek help. But the issue is, even today, seeking help is still an issue. Okay? But suppose I did go and meet somebody like you, what is the kind of help that a counselor can give me? See, the reason I'm asking this question to you is, apart from the stigma of going to a counselor, okay, there's also a fear about what the counselor do.
So what I do is I help to bring about awareness of the thoughts and how one is feeling about whatever is going on. I'm not going to say do it this way, do it that way. This is no advice giving. That's not how it works. We firmly believe that we have the resources within us to be able to but to manage ourselves better. So the intention is to bring alive our resources. That's how we work. Awesome. I don't know whether that's explaining it. Maybe Priyanka, could you make that difference?
It does explain that to a level, but anything else? See, my only thing we're trying to really do is, apart from understanding about the syndrome itself, is also to get the people out of the stigma, and also feel comfortable going to an expert. So what should you tell me? I'm sure I got about X number of participants here, and I'm sure 90% of them will have a very similar issue. Okay. Now, I'm sure they would like answers. So if they have to come to you, what should they realize first? If they finished this talk, this discussion, and they went back and they said, okay, let me look back. And how do they make a note of, is it just a lack of confidence? Or is it a particular situational thing? Okay. Or is it a serious issue? Because, for example, if you think I don't deserve it, it could also mean that person knows that he or she is not good enough deep down. So how do you differentiate these knowledge levels? between me actually knowing deep down I am not good enough. I really got here by sheer luck or whatever. But I am really good, but why do I feel like I don't deserve it?
So in my experience, it is that I'm not good enough feeling that then leads to, oh, okay, one of them is the imposter syndrome. That's asking. I mean, that's the reason why I am feeling the low esteem. So my clients, including me, come in with that thing of I don't feel good enough. I'm constantly comparing myself to others and feeling like I'm not, they are better. I am not showing, I know everything. I know, I've done the research, I've done the studies, I've done everything, and still I keep quiet. I don't speak up. So these are the things that that's what it starts
Doesn't
off
it?
as.
Shiva, I'm just coming back to one very simple thing. Do you really think most of us even think we don't know anything? We always are assuming, especially when you look at people, they all assume that I was damn good, I am damn good. It's always very a positive way, or not, I wouldn't call it positive way, but they do have this opinion about themselves. Okay?
There
So,
are,
how does it work? Could there be a lie lying behind the whole story, or they know they are lying? How does it work?
I think each one of us are feeling really real at that point in time when we think that we are good at something and when we think that we are terrible at something. It's just at different points, it's how we're feeling and how we're thinking. I don't think that that is, you know, it's a little strong to use the word lying and so on and so forth.
Okay, so coming back to, yeah.
I actually just noticed something very interesting in the way you asked that question, and this was a few sentences ago, Bala, which is deep down, somewhere I know I'm not good enough. And that speaks to this very definite kind of belief, deep-rooted belief that I have developed and continue to keep within me. Along with other feelings of, as Seema was saying, yeah, I am good, I know enough, I am great, and I can do this. So there is, both can exist simultaneously, or depending on where you are in your life at any given point.
So, kind of the first question, why is it called an imposter syndrome?
Because you feel like you have fooled everybody into believing you're amazing.
Okay.
When actually you're not.
When you think that you're
Okay, tell me, you yourself told me, and I'm sure the audience understands your thing. This issue is very, very common. Okay, so why isn't a lot more work, a lot more awareness being created around this issue? Because I'm
mental
sure.
mental health issues are only now being brought into the foreground, and people are paying attention to, okay, mental health is something that is important to address too. And yeah, now there's an audience, I guess, and there is people are listening, so it's happening now, never too late.
Okay, since you said this also could be as a mental health issue, or we're discussing that, could this be genetic? Could this issue be a serious genetic story?
I don't know if some amazing research is going to come out in the next 50 years that's going to prove that. There are, for instance, research studies that say that trauma can be passed down in the DNA.
Definitely.
And I, for one, don't know if 50 years later there is a research that says yes, imposter syndrome is genetic. it seems to be a very individual thing right now, and there is nothing genetic associated with it at all. And while we do talk a lot about imposter syndrome, and we're saying that it is, when we meet women, it's quite common. There is also the fact that there are outside factors that are faced by women or other people, who are not, other people who are in the minority, which are real issues related to culture, related to gender, related to race, all of that, which also impede performance. Those are also real. So we are not at any point saying that, oh, it's all imposter syndrome that is stopping, for instance, women. It is certain outside socioeconomic factors that also stop, and those also exist.
That's interesting. I heard Naga talking about when will one see the duality and learn from it?
Naga, would you like to tell us a little bit more about see the duality?
Yeah. Sorry, I was not able to unmute.
I just did that for you. Okay.
Yeah. The duality is, see, you think you are something else, you are something else, right? That is the whole issue here. And one is not able to realize that the very self has greater potential. And the image that you have about yourself is actually troubling you.
Okay. So
there is a duality here, and when will they see this duality? And once one sees the duality, then they understand that the image is not strong. I am strong. I make a big difference.
that's a beautiful way of putting it. We do work on the image of ourselves, our self-image. Our self-image does come from the way we perform, how competent we are, and so on. So when we are focusing only on the performance and only on the competence, and we're not seeing ourselves as being whole, that's when the internal struggle comes up, right? I think I'm addressing what you're saying. I'm not quite sure. When we start to have this focus only on a certain aspect of us, that's when the internal conflict comes about. Would that be what you're saying, Naga?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, in the sense, if one is not able to see one's own mind, then this duality comes in, it plays. Or multiple characters will start operating, rather. It's not just one myself, but it's many things. But if one is not aware and watching, observing, then the multiple characters will start playing their own game, and you get caught in that game. And God knows when one gets free from that, So what is that point when one starts seeing it? That is the question.
Naga, I think you just raised the issue you asked about 20 questions back. It is so difficult to try to look within ourselves and start looking at that issue. Because within that there is an excuse for ourselves.
Yes.
And since there are not many strong, symptoms, as you call it, okay, you're able to give so many excuses to yourself.
Yes.
You can always, like I said, you can always call it lack of confidence. Oh, I know I'll get over it, because it's not really impacting you on the immediate day-to-day basis. Either it's affecting you without you really, it's not like the other issues where, you possibly go into a extreme low state of lifestyle, or, you get into addiction and stuff. This does not affect you that badly, but it does. It's somewhere doing it, but it's not really a direct impact. So I think individually, I would not even give it the importance that it deserves. So how does one give it the importance? Because for example, if I'm into, say, feeling low, okay, I know there are certain behavioral patterns. I don't feel like meeting people. I don't feel like doing that, which affects my immediate lifestyle. Or if I'm into, say, addiction, I know I'm blowing up money, or I'm drugged all the time, or whatever it can be. I'm into that. It's again impacting my immediate situation. And there are people around me who can also observe these things. But when it comes to this syndrome, what I think I understood is it doesn't really directly affect me or the people around me on a daily lifestyle basis. So how do I become aware? How do I stop giving excuses? At what point do I know it is not just one of those odd days I'm feeling low and I don't like myself, because I had a bad hair day or whatever, but it's a serious issue. When do I know that? I mean, that's exactly, I think, what Naga wanted to ask about duality. When do I, correct, Naga?
Yes.
So
So
because it doesn't really impact me immediately. And the people around me won't even observe it.
So it's interesting that only when it becomes depression, and only when it becomes an addiction, and only when it becomes something really big, and this one is
Yes.
when we allow ourselves permission to seek help,
Correct.
to do something about it.
Absolutely. So, but in this case, since it's also a serious issue, which can affect your interaction with people, because you have a low self-esteem, okay, it can affect your immediate family, it can affect you. How does one recognize it at an early stage? If I were to ask you, tell me 5 symptoms. Okay, I don't know whether symptom is right or wrong, but whatever. Okay, is it? I will call symptom because we all understand that term. What would it be? Let's take an average individual going to work. Let's take even an age group of, say, 25 to 35 or 40. Let's even go to that level. What would happen at that age? What could happen that he might say, hey, let the alarm bell start going?
It's a chronic lack of self-confidence, in spite of the evidence otherwise. The continuously saying that I don't, I don't deserve this medal that I've received. I don't deserve the promotion that I've got. I don't deserve the project that I have been made a part of. I am not. The third one would be I am not trying to take up opportunities that I can definitely do. I can do well. That would be a third one.
What Seema described really, clearly were some of the behavioral patterns that might show up. So behavior is something that happens on the outside. So because you were asking about what's the earliest trigger, the earliest trigger may just be me in my head. It could just be holding on to beliefs that make me feel smaller, which can have the kind of behaviors that Seema just described. So it becomes really important to just notice what our inner chatter about ourselves is. And it's really as simple as that. It's just about becoming aware. It's just about noticing. And that is also something that, say, even a friend can help you with. Even, that's where a coach or a counselor would start.
But in a normal situation, don't you think, a lot of conditioning that can influence us? I mean, people have been telling you from the time of your childhood that you're not good enough. You may be damn good, but somebody around you, all the time saying you're not good at this, you're not good at that, doing small issues. Is that a huge problem? Because what we really need to do is,
I have, Bala, I'm so, and this is something very close to my heart also, because when I work with young people, between the ages of, say, 10 to 18 or 20.
Please be a bit loud, please.
Sir, a lot of times parents come and say, with the child, can you help her because she is an introvert and she is really shy and she doesn't speak up? And the first thing that comes to me is, no, don't have this conversation in front of the child. So because suddenly it's become, being an introvert is a quote unquote problem. And that is absolutely a place where these kind of negative self-chatter can start. Absolutely. So yeah. So we have to. So one has to be careful about what we're saying to kids. How do we talk about them to other people? What one is giving kids on a daily basis? Is it only messages about lack, about weaknesses? Is there enough positive affirmation? And again, this is not new knowledge. This has become very common nowadays, where lots of people are saying, well, just make sure that you are positively affirming and you're giving lots of encouragement and you're working from a place of strength instead of a place of constantly finding gaps, challenges, weaknesses, because that's going to happen anyway when they get their first job and they get their first performance review. You were good at 1, 2, 3. You need to work on 1, 2, 3. So, just if the basis is strong, there is less chance of these things happening.
How can the schools help? Let's come back to the basics of catching them young and trying to see if it doesn't, and the whole thing doesn't manifest itself at all, and give a lot of positivity around the child to begin with. How can the schools help? Or how can the teachers help?
So
is there really a right or wrong answer to this?
I totally understand that. There's no right or wrong answer. But at least small tips of, can they recognize these things at early stage? Can they intervene? Is there a possibility?
First and foremost, recognize the imposter syndrome within yourself. Become acquainted with your own imposter syndrome. Become acquainted with what are you thinking, what are you saying to yourself, and how are you behaving.
Sima, that's perfectly okay. But my question here is, if it can manifest itself because you are living in an environment which has from the very young age curbed you, okay? And you already got into a very serious issue by the time you are, say, 18, 19, 20, okay? But my question is, can this be identified by an outside, like a teacher or a parent, very early? And can people intervene and do something about it?
Well, if a child is getting at the 90s and 95s and 99s and is still worried about their performance, and they're saying, oh, I was lucky that I did so well in the test, or attributing their performance to something other than themselves, then yeah, that's the imposter syndrome right there.
What can be done is, one is, because, and this is something as a parent I notice, myself, catch myself doing a lot is, we're so directive with our kids. Do this, don't do that, now do this, now do that. Just to be able to take some minutes and just listen to them. Just listen to have non-transactional conversations with your kids, just which are not about something that needs to be achieved or done, just about feelings, just where they are at, those kind of conversations. And in schools, so education systems that work from a place of strength building as opposed to gap finding or sort of filling up gaps or finding challenges. I feel that those will be much more helpful if we look at each child as unique and having their own strengths, instead of helping them, or instead of saying there is some standard that you need to constantly meet and catch up to, because later on that's going to become their inner voice as well. What if we said, okay, that each person is unique, they have their own way of learning, their own strengths, and work from that place.
And also, I'd say make a distinction between the behavior and themselves. Talk about the behavior per se. Don't say you are talented, you are smart, or you are. That's a smart thing that you did. That's a lot of hard work that went into whatever you're doing. Those kind of things. Not to identify with what the performance aspect of.
One question from Jyoti here about how does one differentiate between honestly critical about oneself and actually experiencing the imposter syndrome? Seema, do you want to take that?
How does one differentiate? I think that you are kind of being critical about oneself. It is that inner critic. It's a type of inner critic. So either which way, you would want to work on your inner critic.
And how does one do that? I mean,
what you call, Jyoti, maybe if I could, perhaps what you're saying is, Jyoti, Adam Grant, who's a psychologist, talks about two kinds of self-doubt. One is an idea doubt and one is an actual self-doubt. An idea doubt is the kind of sort of doubt which enables us to constantly improve. And a self-doubt is something that will hold us back. So that right there is one way to find out about whether one is being honestly critical, as you say, or experiencing the imposter syndrome, or experiencing the.
Okay, that's what you meant. Sorry, I got that question.
Well, I hope I got her question right.
Yeah, right.
Your question is answered.
No, I think by the end of it, I realized, I as an outsider realized that it's quite a complex syndrome, I mean, you really can't pinpoint a lot of things. And there are nothing starkly on your face which somebody can see or you can see on your own. You need to be damn intelligent to appreciate what you're going through. I mean, you've got to be very intelligent to know that the difference between your critical thinking and your imposter syndrome situation. And that, I think, so, okay, to make everything simpler, 5 points for somebody to introspect and understand that I have an issue in terms of the imposter syndrome. Something very simple, a common unread, with a lack of knowledge, person can understand.
Number one, I don't have an issue. This is perfectly manageable. It's
Perfect.
normal, it's low feeling.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah. Seema, do you want to go on with the rest?
Yeah.
You're saying what are the 5 things that one can
Simple.
do?
Yeah, just to understand his situation.
So to understand, not to handle it. You're saying how to
First understand, then we handle it. You know? I don't even. Well, I don't want people to put the stuff under the carpet by giving excuses. It could be a serious issue.
in that sense, it's not. I wouldn't say it's about intelligence or not. I mean, I don't want to go into that. I don't think either of us go into that discussion about cognitive ability. It's more about self-awareness. How much
Yeah.
I do take note.
It is a lack of self-confidence when there is enough of evidence saying otherwise. You are competent and you're saying you're not competent. That's the one thing that I think. I mean, I just summarize it as that one thing. That's what you need to look at. If you're attributing your competence to something other than you, then you need to look at yourself. Yes, it is a lack of. It is a lack of self-confidence. Yes, it is nervousness. Yes, it is all of those. Plus, it is that you are doing well. You are doing an amazing job. Probably you want to ask yourself, what am I scared of? Am I scared of being successful? And I have this imposter syndrome. Okay.
That I think sounded a lot more understandable for me, because it was. I think it makes a lot of sense. Yes, I think there's a lot of fear of being successful too. There's a lot of nervousness around being happy. There's a lot of nervousness around a lot of things. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Triyansha, anything you want to add to it?
I think what Seema said just that one thing, and perhaps the other sort of corollary to that is because I'm constantly telling myself that actually I don't belong here, I'm a fraud. So I'm putting so much pressure on myself to be absolutely perfect and great and overachiever in everything I do. That is the single most common way and method, I guess, of identifying whether I have imposter syndrome or not.
Okay. Since both of you in the beginning of the whole talk, you agreed that you had issues with imposter syndrome. Okay? So how did you get aware of that, and what did you do about it?
Well, for me, I can say that I'm still getting aware of it. It's a process. It's showing up. And it is, yes, I did share, I worked with a coach. I have a mentor. I see a therapist. So I got help because I knew that it was holding me back. And it's still present. And as I said, I don't see it as a one-time thing. I see it as it's like a process of just becoming more and more aware. And as I do that, a lot of other things get resolved for me. I'm able to achieve things that I may not have been able to. So for me, it's a process.
So, mine's similar. It is. I have started to. I do seek help. I go to a therapist. In the process of becoming a psychodramatist and so on, I have become aware of my thought process of feeling like a fraud, attributing things to people being nice to me, or things like that, and I catch myself thinking like that, and then I ask, what would it be like to think like a non-imposter? It's it's a tip that Valerie Young, who's a researcher on this particular topic, she has given that tip. What would it be like to think like a non-imposter? So I asked myself that question. And several other similar kind of questions that I ask myself. So it's a process of being aware of, yeah, okay, I am thinking like an imposter, and then finding out, why am I thinking like that? What is it? Where has it come from, perhaps, if I want to go that deep, and so on. It's a whole bunch of questions that I ask myself.
So what's the answer you get when you ask yourself the question? One simple thing. What's the answer you get when you ask yourself,
Way thinking is not working for me. What would I like to change it? What would I like to say to myself instead?
Okay. And so do you have an answer for yourself, or do you need to seek outside help for the answer?
Most of the times I have an answer. And
Wonderful.
when I don't, I seek help.
I mean, that's definitely wonderful. I think it makes it simpler for people like us to. I'm sure we all have got answers within ourselves. We just need to ask them. Yes, Seema, anything else? Audience, any questions? We have crossed the 1 hour limit, and yeah. No, I think it's been wonderful because, I mean, the subject itself, I'm sure, is new. That is new to me, the name, the title. I think we should start talking more about this because it should be identified at a young age, or even possibly create an environment for the child not to get influenced by this, by the negativity around him, and see what best we can do. Or if you guys have got any suggestions how we can take this whole story further, it'd be really good. So any suggestions, anything, please tell us what to do. Because we really want to take these kind of subjects out there. It should not be end of the day just say depressions, anxiety, we're going far beyond into a lot more other situations which needs its space out there. So thank you both of you, and thanks for the audience for, all of them stayed back till the whole 1 hour, which means you're good. Thank you. Okay. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think we should have more debates like this. Well, it is important. And I just realized by the end of it that the imposter syndrome discussion is actually very tough because there's nothing to pinpoint anywhere. There's so many things that influence it. At the same time, that thing influences a lot of things. I personally, yes, I'm going to do more studying on that. That's for sure. Any last minute tips?
That our discussion has, motivated you to want to know more about it. And that's what's needed. Your question about what can we do? Find out, talk to people, share. The simple everyday stuff.
Oh, yeah. Seema, anything last?
Yeah, just a reminder that the imposter syndrome comes up when we really care about what we're doing. It helps us to keep us grounded and humble and respected. It also alerts us to our self-limiting beliefs. So just don't try and throw it out, but actually try and engage with your imposter syndrome. Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you, for being our lovely audience.
Thank you very much. Thank guys. Have a lovely evening and take care and keep in touch. Bye. See you.